All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of Birds on the Farm. So, for those of you who don't know, this is a new offshoot podcast that Dealing the Cards has launched. Instead of focusing on the Major League Club and what's going on there, we're going to be diving into the minor league system. So, we're joined by Kareem here, and it's Kareem Season on Twitter. So, go check out his content. It's incredible. He posts GIFs of various minor league players, lots of stats. And he's probably the best single source for information about the Cardinals system. He's always talking about the future before it even happens. So go check that out. We can't wait to have him on here. We're going to be every week going, hopefully at some point in the future, going live for you, but we'll be pre-recorded videos for now every week and telling you about what's going on in the Cardinals system. So we're going to introduce ourselves, tell you a little about ourselves. Also, we'll be sharing our favorite prospects. So let's just get into that right away. Kareem, introduce yourself and tell us about your favorite prospect.
Yeah, so Sandy, appreciate this opportunity. You and the rest of the Dealing the Cards cast. It's being able to talk on this platform about prospects, something that I'm super passionate about. For the past couple of years, I've really got involved with posting on social media, Twitter, Kareem SSN, Instagram, Cardinals Prospects, just sharing either videos, analysis, stats of prospects in the system. I also write over at Redbird Rants if you want to check out some of my work over there. So yeah, really excited to start this podcast. I've really over the past couple of years, I've certainly gotten a lot of exposure in terms of prospects and stuff, things of that nature. And now to bring this all over to the podcast world, it's really exciting. And I can't wait to, be able to talk about prospects on this podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. Hopefully, we've got big plans for this. We hope to be going live at some point. We hope to be having on some awesome guests, players within the system, coaches within the system, people on the outside looking in. We really can't wait to bring you all the best prospect news so that you can know what the Cardinals are going to look like a few years from now, right? So it's going to be really fun. Like I said before, this is going to be every week. That's kind of what we're hoping for. And we're going to be bringing you all the best news from the system. So we're going to, Kareem told you a little about himself. I'm Sandy. I'm part of the Dealing the Cards crew. You can find me on Twitter at SandyMax718. I don't share the same kind of great news that Kareem shares. That's not my kind of content. But I'll be on here teeing him up to hit some home runs on here every week. So it's going to be awesome. So Kareem, tell us a little bit about your favorite prospect, why he's your favorite, and kind of how you see him impacting the club someday.
I think my favorite prospect currently in the Cardinals organization is Luis Gastelum. Now, Gastelum, he's a relief pitching prospect. He's someone that prior to this year, he pitched in rookie ball, so we hadn't seen him entirely. There wasn't enough video out there and limited data access. Now getting to watch him at Palm Beach, play in front of StatCast. We have his pitch data. And just being able to access that, you get to look at his changeup, which is one of the best pitches in minor league baseball. The fact that he gets negative inches of induced vertical break on that pitch, it's crazy. It's almost got screwball action, similar to a guy like Devin Williams. So yeah, I think Luis Gastelum's changeup, it might be the best changeup in all of minor league baseball, which is super exciting. I do think some of his prospect value is a little bit like he's a relief pitcher, so he might not have the highest ceiling as a prospect, but I do think he's he's one of the sneaky good prospects in the Cardinals organization that I don't personally see get enough hype. I actually had talked to Sam Dykstra, who works at MLB Pipeline. I was able to ask him about Gastelum and what he thought about him. And he was actually someone that they considered for their top 30. So potentially seeing him start to get love on those, top 30 prospect lists, it'll be cool to see that hopefully this offseason going into next year. But yeah, I think he's arguably the best relief pitching prospect in the Cardinals organization. Absolutely love that changeup. And Luis Gastelum is definitely someone Cardinals fans should get used to because I think he's going to be a big league reliever at some point.
Wow, that's awesome. Where do you see them assigning him next year after the offseason?
Definitely Peoria, I would say. I mean, he's pitched incredibly at Palm Beach this year. So I'm sure he would get that promotion up to Peoria at the start of next year, but I think he could be a quick mover. This is someone that's got the stuff to be a big league reliever, but the command is there too. It's not like this. It's not like this guy is, in need of so much refinement, like his current ability, I think could help him skyrocket through the system. And it wouldn't shock me at all if this is someone by the end of the year that's, starting to put himself in big league consideration, whether that's being in AA or AAA. I think very excited to see what's in the store for Luis Gastelum's development. When you have a pitch as good as his changeup, it's like that makes things a lot easier. He can rely on that pitch against lefties and righties. It's not like his other stuff is particularly, not that good. His fastball, I think, is close to average, but there are things that you like. I mean, this is a guy that gets plus extension. He has good spin traits. I like the slider a lot too. So I think Gastelum is definitely a guy that Cardinals fans could get used to.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So to hear about a relief prospect who's pitching at, A ball, but of course it's Kareem that would know. He's got these amazing tools. So go check out Luis Gastelum, learn about him as a player. On the other hand, my player is a little less exciting perhaps, but I've been a Michael McGreevy fan since they drafted him. I know it's not the most exciting first round pick the Cardinals have had. They kind of had a trend where they took him and Zach Thompson, and they took these guys with, I guess, lower ceilings. And it's fair to say Michael McGreevy is a low ceiling pitcher for sure. But it was awesome to see him come up, make his big league debut, and to have been one of the few people that didn't turn on him when he wasn't incredible at AAA or really anywhere in the system for that matter. He did have a nice stretch to start the year last year in the minors, but then got moved up to AAA and pitched to, I believe, like a 4.5 ERA. It wasn't fantastic. But to see him go 7 scoreless in his major league debut, that was awesome. I was very, very excited about it. I know I got into it with Josh Jacobs plenty of times on the Deal in the Cards podcast about Michael McGreevy. But Kareem has also been in Michael McDreamy's corner. So tell us a little bit about him. I know the things that I like about him are just that over this year, he's been able to provide a ton of innings at Memphis. He's already gone over last year's total at Memphis, which was 134. I know he's already thrown 138 innings this year. He's in line to get a few more, and including his big league action. He's seen 145 innings this year, which is something I love for a guy that could potentially be your number 5 starter next year.
Yeah, Sandy, I've definitely become a Michael McGreevy fan this year, but I wouldn't say that's always been the case. I think going back to when the Cardinals drafted him, I was someone that wasn't overly high on the pick. Okay, the Cardinals went ahead and took a guy that had a limited ceiling. I didn't see this as someone that, was going to be a guy with particularly great stuff at the next level, really a sinker baller. His slider's okay. But I saw him more as like a depth option. But this year, I think we've really seen the emergence of his breaking ball, his slider in particular. It's a pitch that's getting a ton more sweep. It's almost profiling like a sweeper, where in the past, it didn't get nearly as much sweep. I think he's added close to 5-6 inches of horizontal break to that pitch. So I think that's taken the offering to another level. He's had a ton of success using that pitch against both righties and lefties. The command is pretty solid. I think when you take a look at his sinker, I think McGreevy's sinker has at least performed pretty well against righties, especially at the AAA level. The rest of the arsenal, I think, is a bit of a work in progress. We saw the cutter, a pitch that he added this spring training, actually. And in his big league debut, the pitch profiled more like a gyro slider. Since he went back to AAA, it's gotten back to more of that cutter shape. So I wonder if, the big league baseball or, the park elements or something, like it seemed like something was off there. So it's definitely more so of a cutter than a gyro slider. Although I would prefer the pitch to have more of that sharper break. I think the cutter at AAA hasn't performed as well as you would hope for. And McGreevy really needs another pitch to attack lefties. I think when you look at McGreevy, he's a guy that I don't really have problems in him facing right-hand batters. I think his sinker and slider do a serviceable job at getting righties out, but it's really lefties that can sometimes, do a little bit of damage against him. And I think, that cutter, I think profiling more like a gyro slider, if he can get back to more of that, I think that would be something that I would really be interested in with McGreevy. But besides that, like, I think McGreevy's just going to be a guy that is going to eat innings, get a ton of ground balls.
Munch.
And when you look at what the state of the Cardinals rotation these past few years, they've gotten a lot of those guys. But the thing is, you're paying what, $10,
yes,
$12
that's it right there.
If you get McGreevy to even be, let's say, 80% of what those guys are, which I think you can get that out of McGreevy, at least like 4.5 to 4.7 kind of ERA, eaten innings. I could see McGreevy being that at the next level. And if you can get that at the price of someone that's going to be paid next to nothing, I think that's going to be valuable for the Cardinals. I think we need to start to see some of these guys get an opportunity to stick in the rotation. We've seen how, doing that for a guy like Andre Palante has been, fantastic for the Cardinals this year. I think they need to give some of these guys in AAA, whether it be a McGreevy, a Sam Roberza, or a Gordon Graceffo, I think these guys deserve a shot to at least see what they have at the big league level, because I just don't like the idea of paying, a guy like Lance Lynn or Kyle Gibson money when you can get similar production out of your AAA talent. And I just think that sets you up better for the future. I just want to see a little bit more clarity in these guys. I don't want to give up on them as starters and just pigeonhole them into relief roles. I want to see these guys get an opportunity.
100%. That's something we've been saying on Dealing the Cards for a while now. The Cardinals spend money on things they don't need to spend money on, and I figure if Miles Mikolas can go out there and have a 5.24 ERA for $18 million, I mean, he's going to be on the team next year. They're paying him too much. They're not going to find a trade partner. I'd be shocked if they were able to. But maybe you can move on from one of Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn. I think it's going to be Lynn based on the results this year, even though Lynn's numbers are sneaky good compared to Kyle Gibson, especially when you factor out his blow-up starts, which I know you can't really factor those out, but he's been good a lot of the time. But when you think about that, the Cardinals could get Michael McGreevy basically for free, and there's no reason he can't have a 4.5 ERA next year if he has a strong enough season. So that's why I'm excited about him. I think we're going to see him a lot next year. Speaking of someone else who could help, though, next year, hopefully as soon as next year, we're going to talk about our organizational players of the month. These are not ours. These are the Cardinals organizational players of the month. What do you think about Quinn Mathews? Why did he win this award? What kind of year has he had? Why is he a name that suddenly everyone's talking about? He shot up from a day 2 selection at last year's draft, someone coming out of third with a ton of mileage on his arm, to all of a sudden somebody that everybody around minor league baseball is talking about. So tell us about his meteoric rise.
Man, Quinn Mathews has been one of the most exciting stories to follow along this year. I mean, the fact that this was someone just last year at Stanford, sitting 90, 91 miles an hour on his heater. When the Cardinals selected him, you thought this would be another, pitchability arm that, I kind of got sick and tired of the Cardinals drafting, Sandy, but that's just not the case with Quinn Mathews. He was able to add 4 miles an hour to his pitches, particularly, his fastball. It's a pitch that already had solid traits in college, but getting that 4 mile an hour velocity jump, it's taken that pitch to another level. I think it's one of the best fastballs in the Cardinals organization. When you look at it, it's 94, 95 miles an hour. He's gotten up to 97 with it. The pitch gets 18 inches of induced vertical break from a low slot. So it's got a flat angle, gets a ton of life, and hitters just haven't been able to hit it throughout the minor leagues. Like it's crazy. But besides the fastball, we can't ignore the fact that this guy has one of the better changeups in minor league baseball. We're talking about Luis Gastelum. I don't think Quinn Mathews' changeup is at that level per se, but I think Mathews has a solid changeup, and the results for it have been very good. it was his go-to pitch in college, and he's continued to use that pitch in unique count. Like you'll see him when hitters are ahead of the count use the pitch. So it's crazy to see the kind of maturity this guy has on the mound. It's not like he's just got exceptional stuff. This guy's able to manage counts. He's got an ability to just be very mature on the mound, the way he attacks hitters. And then that's not even talking about his slider, man. Like I'm talking about fastball, changeup. I think his slider arguably is his best pitch. So those are three really good offerings. And talking a little bit about the slider, it's a pitch that has improved a ton this year from what it was in college. The pitch's velocity has increased as the year has gone on. The pitch shape has gotten a lot sharper, and that's an offering that he has no problem using against both lefties as a swing and miss offering, and even righties. So I think with Mathews, you have a really good arsenal. He also has a curveball that he uses occasionally that I think is a fine offering. So, I mean, this is a guy that's got the stuff. He's a very mature pitcher on the mound. The command is there. I mean, what's there not to love about this guy? And for him to jump, Palm Beach to Peoria to Springfield, now make it to Memphis, I think he's going to produce great results at Memphis too. I'm sure this is someone that's going to get some time at the major league level next year. So super excited about Quinn Mathews' ascent. And I think he is the prospect in the Cardinals organization this year that has boosted his stock the most, for sure.
Huge success story. There's a ton to break down there, and we're not going to be able to break down all of it. That's a lot of good information here. But tell me a little bit about the significance of adding 5 to 7 miles an hour to your heater. Like, what does that mean? And how rare is it to see a guy go from sitting 90 to touching 97 in a span of 1 year? Like, I know we can't really say how he does it. Like, he's in the gym, he's working hard, obviously. But, like, how rare is that?
It's very rare. I don't think you can ever expect a prospect to gain 4 ticks in velocity like the way Quinn Mathews has done this year. That's not to say prospects aren't able to increase velocity. I mean, the Cardinals have done a pretty good job at adding a bit velocity to some of their pitchers. I mean, when you look at a guy like Andre Palante, for example, he added velocity since his college days. Similarly, Zach Thompson, I know his velocity is catered off, but at a point, the velocity was higher than what it was. Besides those two, another guy, Gordon Graceffo. So I don't think you can ever expect 4 miles an hour. I do think there is something about just being in front of big league development that, and the strength and conditioning and all that you can definitely improve your stuff there. But 4 ticks is crazy, man. Like, I don't think you can expect that for anyone.
Yeah, that's crazy. So real quick, one thing, like, we're going to be talking about specific players, talking about numbers, but also we want to use this as a chance for everyone here to learn how to analyze the system and learn more about it, right? So that's why we're going to be talking about general stuff like velocity gains, pitches that you can throw in any count. That's the next thing I'm going to ask you about. What it means to have an out pitch, what shapes look like, what tunneling is. And so these are topics that we'll break down periodically. We'll pause and learn a bit about that. So one thing you also talked about here was the changeup. It's something he can throw in any count. What's the significance of having a pitch you can throw in any count for a big league pitcher or for a prospect?
Well, I mean, the point I was making more so was when pitchers fall behind the count, they tend to use the fastball more, but that's just not the case for Quinn Mathews. And it just shows, the kind of maturity he has and the advanced feel he has for his secondary offerings. And I think that's going to do a lot of service for him once he gets up to the major leagues, because I mean, having that ability to just throw your secondary offerings when hitters are in, the advantageous situations, I think that's huge. And a lot of young pitchers struggle with that. And for Mathews to be ahead of that, despite being, so young, it's really cool.
That's awesome. And that's a part of development that I feel like is not talked about very often. But yeah, I mean, you're making the point here that He's able to manage counts. He's able to get ahead too. He lands a lot of first pitch strikes, which
Absolutely.
is really, really important. Getting ahead, not letting hitters sit back. But when he does fall behind, hitters can't sit on his fastball. They have to be ready for whatever. And that's a huge piece. And I think that's why it's one of the many reasons why at some point he's going to make an impact on this major league staff.
Yeah, absolutely, Sandy.
Yeah. So another guy who also won like co-pitcher of the month is Lynn here, Che-Wei Lynn. I know he's not nearly as close to being ready, but he's also had a great season. So Kareem, tell us a little bit about maybe why he won this award, how his season's been. I know he's also one of the risers this year. Super excited about his development.
Yeah, Che-Wei Lynn is a guy. Last year, we saw a little bit of him at Palm Beach, and you saw the electric stuff. I mean, this is a guy mid to high 90s fastball, the changeup, really good pitch. I mean, we've talked a lot about changeups this podcast already. I mean, he's just another guy on the list of good changeups in the organization. But yeah, Che-Wei Lynn's a guy that I thought last year from what we saw of him, I didn't expect this guy to be someone that was going to be living inside the strike zone as much as he has. I mean, the walk rates are impressive. Like, this isn't someone that's walking a ton of hitters despite having, plus stuff. I will say, like, I think the control at this point is more so ahead of the command. And what I mean by that is he does throw a lot of strikes, but he does get in the habit of throwing pitches near the center of the plate. And I think as he goes up in the system, I think we'll need to see him get better at that, attack the corners, stuff like that. I think he's really, he's done a good job at throwing strikes, but I think he can do probably a better job at commanding the corners. But yeah, this is a guy that's got a fastball that's 96, 97 miles an hour. It's gotten up to 101. I mean, in terms of velocity, I mean, it's hard to beat that, man. Like the pitch shape isn't the best. He doesn't get a ton of life on it for his arm, for his release height. He does get a ton of arm side run on the pitch, though. So I think it can be a pretty good contact management pitch. So despite it not being like a high, whiff inducing offering, I still think it could be a solid offering for him. And then obviously, like I was hinting to earlier, the changeup is a really good pitch. It's performed outstanding. He also has a slider in his arsenal, a pitch that I'm not sure how to feel about, to be honest. The results of the pitch have been all right at single A, but I do question, like, he doesn't spin the ball particularly well. So I wonder if that's an offering that, he could potentially get better at. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, he gets arm side run on his slider. I think he gets like around 3 inches of arm side run. So, which is like, you don't see that out of pitchers.
Yeah, that's a strange shape.
Yeah, but so yeah, gyro slider gets arm side run. But besides that, he also has a splitter that he sparingly throws. But the fact that this guy's he's also got a sinker. So he's got a sinker, changeup, and splitter, and they're all similar kind of pitches. Like, his sinker is a tad lower in velo than his four seamer. So the fact that he has 3 offerings that are kind of similar, just a little bit different, that's really cool. I think the splitter is the most fascinating. He's able to absolutely kill the spin on that pitch.
Wow.
And when he's used it, like, it's induced whiffs at a ridiculous rate. So, I mean, he's got a ton of pitches. I'd like to see improvements in the slider. Obviously, the fastball shape isn't great. There are some concerns with Lynn, but I do think this is someone, at the end of the day, when you have a prospect that's throwing as hard as he does, and it's not like this is someone that his velocity tapers off a ton at the end of starts. And
that's big.
Like, I do think he has it in him to be a starter at the next level. He's just going to continue to take steps up. This is really his first full season in pro ball. And yeah, that's really what I have about Lynn. This past month was spectacular. I think it was his best month of the season. He pitched 5 games. He had a 0.62 ERA. So very impressive stuff. And yeah, I can't wait to see Che-Wei Lynn's development next year. And hopefully this is the guy that eventually down the road could be a starting pitching option for the Cardinals.
Man, that's awesome. And he's the guy that was already having a good year before this August. So it's cool to just see him tick up another level. Where do you think the Cardinals are going to place him next year? I know he started the year at Palm Beach, correct?
Yeah, he's still at Palm Beach right now. So I think much like I was talking about Gastelum, I think he's on the track to start next year at Peoria.
Awesome. Sweet. And then the last guy the Cardinals honored with Player of the Month honors, position player, catcher Jimmy Kooks. He's had an outstanding year. It looks like he's added some power to his game. But Kareem, tell us about the season he's having, specifically the month he's having. Same kind of questions here.
I think Jimmy Kooks is a guy that's just been a model of consistency in terms of what he's done offensively so far in his minor league career. I mean, 2022 at A-ball, he had a 149 WRC plus.
Ooh,
last year, high A Peoria, 122. And now this year, he's taken it to a different level, 157. So 57% above league average at AA. And this is a guy that's still only 23 years old, just turned 23 actually. So he's been very impressive. I think the thing that stands out with Kooks is just his ability to consistently hit line drives. I mean, he's among the best at doing that in minor league baseball. It's close to a 30% line drive rate. It's actually 31.6%. So he's consistently putting the ball on the line. He doesn't pop out much. Constantly putting himself in situations to, have a productive batted ball event, So that's why you see the high average. He's hitting 321 on the season. And I have no reason to believe that he's not able to carry that up to AAA and the major league level. And another thing about Kooks that's been really cool to see is just his development facing lefties. He's improved in that category a ton this year, where in the past he wasn't really a viable option to, hit lefties, but he's really improved in that category this year. And I think potentially this is someone that, could be more than a platoon guy. I mean, I already trust this guy more than any hitter in the Cardinals organization when it comes to hitting right-hand pitching. But the fact that he's been able to improve against lefties as well, it just adds to his profile. He's also a solid defensive catcher as well. So, I mean, Kooks is just one of the I personally have him as the top catching prospect in the Cardinals organization, and it feels like the Cardinals have a plethora of catching talent throughout their organization this year. I mean, like with the emergence of Pedro Baez, whether you like him or you not, I mean, he's done a good job at the major league level. I mean, Ivan Herrera, I love the bat. Defensively, definitely needs some work, specifically with that arm and being able to consistently throw the ball accurately to second base. I think he can work on that. But and then you look down, Leonardo Bernal is another guy I'm sure we'll talk about today. And a guy like Ryan L. Rodriguez in the Dominican Summer League, he was ballistic out there. He had a tremendous season at the DSL. Wow. I can't wait to see him stateside and potentially at Single A. I'm not sure if that'll be next year or the year after, but Ryan L. Rodriguez had some of the best stats in the Dominican Summer League. So, the Cardinals have a ton of catching talent in the organization this year. And Jimmy Kooks is just another one that they have, and super excited about him.
That's awesome. Yeah, looking at Jimmy Kooks' numbers right now, the only thing that concerns me is the really high BABIP he's running. So his batting average on balls in play is 386. But for a guy that hits a lot of line drives, it's not impossible to sustain high BABIPs, right? That's something that he could carry throughout his career. He could be a guy who does have BABIPs somewhere around 335, 340, even once he reaches the major leagues.
Yeah, Sandy, that's what I was pretty much alluding to when I was talking about batted ball results. I mean, when you're able to consistently hit line drives the way Jimmy Kooks has, while also avoiding pop outs. I mean, pop outs are pretty much strikeouts. They're terrible. 100% they're outs. Okay. So when you're doing that, when you're hitting line drives, avoiding pop outs, and also avoiding strikeouts the way that, Kooks doesn't strike out. His strikeout rate's like close to 20%, which is definitely manageable. he's just putting himself in situations where the batted balls are going to find holes, So I think the BABIP, I wouldn't look too deep into that. I think he's the kind of hitter that's going to have a high BABIP, just with the nature of him, hitting line drives and avoiding pop outs. So I do think this is someone who projects to hit for a high average at the next level.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, another big thing that just happened in Cardinal prospect land, we just had the draft, right? So the Cardinals went out, they injected new talent into the organization. There's a lot to like about this haul. We had Kareem on for our draft special over at Dealing the Cards. It was awesome. For those of you that don't know, he's now 3 for 3. He has gotten the Cardinals first round pick right 3 years in a row, which he might be the only person in the world who's done that. So that's pretty crazy. And this year it was maybe the least likely of all of them. But he's stuck with his guns. The Cardinals drafted Wetherholt. Kareem is a giant Wetherholt supporter. And while his debut has been filled with a couple of ups and a couple of downs, there's a lot to like still. So Kareem, tell us a bit about JJ post-draft here.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Wetherholt's slash line, I mean, he's slashing 221, 365, 286 this year. You would think, oh, JJ Wetherholt's gotten off to a bad start. But honestly, I don't think that's the case. Just watching him on a daily basis, this is a guy that's got one of the most mature approaches at the dish already. It's really crazy. I mean, his chase rate ranks in the second of all of Florida State League hitters. And his zone swing percentage is in the 93rd percentile, and that's among hitters with 50 plus plate appearances. So you're looking at a guy that's not only refusing to chase outside of the strike zone, but when pitches are thrown inside the strike zone that he can handle and do damage on, he's swinging at them. So that's been something that's been super impressive about Wetherholt. Just something he's carried on from his time at West Virginia. He made improvements to that this past season, and he's carried that to pro ball. Another thing that's really stood out to me about Wetherholt, I don't think this is a guy that's going to be a platoon guy at the next level. He looks good against righties and lefties. He's comfortable facing both, comfortable facing breaking balls against lefties. It's really been fun to watch in that aspect. Just seeing him approach both right-hand batters and left-hand batters or right-hand pitchers and left-hand pitchers in situations where he's consistently not been overmatched. It's been fun. Just talking a little bit more on the slash line. I mean, this is a guy that I think his batted ball data looks a lot better than his results might indicate. I mean, on the season, he has a 252 Wobicon, which is not great at all, but his ex-Wobicon, his expected Wobicon is 314. So that's a huge gap right there. Huge gap right there. Now, I will say, like he does have an all fields approach. And a lot of the times you'll see him drive the ball to center field or left field. I do think he has the power there, but for him to manifest a little bit more power production, I think we'd like to see him get to his pull side a little bit more. I think maybe a part of that's probably has to do with where he's been pitched. I think he's getting a lot of pitches on the outside part of the plate. And I mean, it puts him in situations where he's just going to drive the ball the other way, So I think something like I said, like tapping in a little bit more to his pull side, I think that would do wonders for him and his development. But regardless, I think this is someone that's going to be at least an average game power producer with excellent contact skills and ability to get on base. I mean, this is someone consistently making hard contacts, 54% hard hit rate, consistently hitting the sweet spot, 42% sweet spot rate. So I just don't see how the batted ball results are going to be as bad as they have been. Like that stuff's going to come around, and over a larger sample, I think the stats are going to look perfectly fine. And besides the offensive side of the ball, I also think he's looked solid at shortstop.
That's awesome.
And in my pre-draft write-up for Wetherholt, I mentioned that he had a fringy arm. I think it's closer to average than I anticipated, to be honest. Like I think the arm is strong enough to play shortstop, And I don't think that should limit him in playing short at the next level. I do think he probably fits best at second base long term, but I do think he definitely has the ability and the instincts to be a shortstop at the next level, which is just huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I know, post-draft, I saw a lot of people that were upset about the Cardinals selecting a shortstop in the first round. And I want to address that here. I know we're probably thinking something similar here, but I think that's ridiculous on its face, right? When you're a professional team, what you want to go for, you want to draft for upside, you want to draft athletic players, you want to draft guys that can fit anywhere. Shortstop's the hardest position to play on the infield. If you can play shortstop, you can probably play second base. And so I think that's a great reason for the Cardinals to go after these athletic players, right? You look at a team like the Cincinnati Reds, who a couple of years ago had this glut of shortstops concentrated at the higher levels. And those things tend to work themselves out a little bit. Guys get hurt, guys bust a bit. But at the same time, it's good to have that depth there because those are guys that can get out and play other places, right? Like you're seeing Spencer Steer playing a lot of third base there right now. He came up as a shortstop prospect, but guess what? That's not his home. You know, Ellie De La Cruz has that lockdown. Matt McLain's bat is good enough to get into the lineup. And that's something I hope we'll see down the line with JJ Wetherholt here, where it's good for the Cardinals to select an athletic player who they can then utilize in other ways if they have to.
Yeah, I think playing shortstop might be, it's probably one of the hardest positions in the game of baseball. And I think if he can handle shortstop, I wouldn't be surprised of him handling a corner outfield. Yeah. We've seen what he's been able to do at third base and second base in college. So I see no problems with him handling those positions. So just adding to the versatility, it just helps the profile a ton.
Yeah, he's a guy we're obviously super excited about. One more thing with him, you talked about the gap between his expected stats and his actual stats. That's reflected in a super low BABIP, which is like 240, which is just crazy for a guy that's hitting the ball as hard as he is and is hitting a lot of line drives. He's not striking out a ton. And so, obviously we're expecting that to trend up. Tiny sample size. It's really hard to expect guys to like break out right after being drafted. Because when you think about it, like he played college baseball earlier this year. That's crazy that he's all like you go just a couple of months, you're playing college baseball, you're going to class, and then all of a sudden you're selected, you're done with school, and you're playing for a major or a minor league club. That's a crazy jump to make. And to see a guy like JJ handle it with this maturity, to keep his approach the same as it was in college or even better, that's awesome. So these are all reasons we're really high on his profile. All right. Well, another guy who's a big standout, and I know you wanted to talk about him, Nolan Sparks. So he's had a really good couple months post-draft. Tell us a little about him, about his profile, and why Cardinals fans should see him as a day 3 steal.
Yeah, so Sparks is a guy the Cardinals picked up in the 13th round out of a Division III school, Rochester.
Oh, my goodness.
And I mean, when you're getting a guy that's out of D3, like it's always intriguing. I mean, I was lucky enough to have TrackMan data for a lot of these prospects that were in Division I baseball, but I had no idea what to expect out of Nolan Sparks, entering, his time in the Cardinals organization so far. But this is someone who, prior to his senior year, went over to Tread Athletics. They were able to unlock some velocity in his game. They even tinkered with the splitter, although we haven't seen that pitch so far at the professional level. But yeah, I think this is a guy, potential steal for the Cardinals in the 13th round. So far, in 11 2/3 innings out of relief for Palm Beach, he has a 3.09 ERA. Hitters are slashing just 185, 313, 333 against him. And what I love about Sparks is I think he has a lot of attributes that you like to see out of a pitching prospect. I think he's someone that's very moldable for player development. And I'm really curious to see like what the Cardinals development has in store for this guy. I mean, this is a guy that's a good mover on the mound. I think he's a plus athlete for a pitcher, gets a ton of extension, spins the ball well. And I mean, when you have that to build off of, I think the Cardinals are in good hands, or he's in good hands with the Cardinals player development. And I think this is someone that's just going to keep unlocking, just keep getting better, essentially. Going from a D3 environment to now on a professional team, I think that's huge. And so the best pitch for Nolan Sparks at the moment is his fastball. It's a pitch that's sitting in the mid 90s, currently averages 94, but as he's gone on so far in single A, the velocity has increased each start or each appearance out of the bullpen. The pitch averages 15.5 inches of vert from a 5.4 vertical release, so gets plus ride relative to his release height. The command of the offering has been a little spotty at times, but when he's able to locate it in the top third of the strike zone, the pitch has an incredible negative 3.3 degree vertical approach angle, which ranks 4th best in the Florida State League. The Cardinals have a ton of those guys with flat vertical approach angle fastballs. Think of someone like a Tink Hens, Quinn Mathews. Obviously, Darlin Saladin is a guy that's made waves this year in the Cardinals farm system. Another guy that's similar in that sense, and Zach Showalter as well. So there's a plethora of arms in the Cardinals organization with flat VAA fastballs, and Nolan Sparks is just another one on the list for them. He also throws a bullet slider at around 86 miles an hour. The swing and miss numbers haven't been particularly great for the pitch so far, but I think the pitch shape is solid. And I think with a larger sample, I think the numbers of the offering will definitely look a bit better. He also throws a curveball at 81 miles an hour. He doesn't get a ton of depth on the pitch. It's more of a death ball kind of moving pitch. Gets a negative 7 inches of induced vertical break, not a ton of horizontal. So just goes straight down. Interested to see how this pitch play. I think it's really fascinating. And I definitely think it could be a plus pitch for him down the road. Previously, I talked about the splitter that he added at Tread. We haven't seen that yet in Pro Bowl. I do think adding a changeup or a splitter could definitely help his arsenal a ton. So it'll be interesting to see if that ever comes to fruition and he ever, unleashes that in games.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I really like the stuff with Nolan Sparks. The fastball is really the calling card. Like I said, very moldable for pitching development. And although he is pitching out of relief, it is, important to note this is a guy that at Rochester, he was a starter. So maybe next year we see him in the rotation, which, just boosts his upside even more.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to see the Cardinals put their best arms into starting roles, which is something we've harped on over the past few years, but it's something that they seem more interested in doing now with some changes in their front office, some changes in development. Hopefully we see them take these guys with big upsides and put them into starting roles, because that's how you build a really successful big league staff. It takes a long time. That's something we've noticed, right? The Cardinals lag behind in terms of pitching development for several years. And that's why there's nobody aside, like Andre Palante aside, there's nobody at the big league level that had prospect pedigree that's, pitching for the Cardinals right now. It's all these guys that they signed, all these guys that came off the free agent market. And that's why the rotation's so expensive, like we were talking about earlier. So we'd love to see them go that direction here. Nolan Sparks, obviously, we're really excited about him. Guy coming from, like Kareem said, a D3 school. That's crazy to think that a few months ago, he was going to a D3 school. Obviously he was taking it really seriously if he's a legit MLB prospect, but just, the difference in environment to go from there to, now you're in contention to make a Cardinals top 30 prospect list at some point in the next couple of years. That's crazy. So really good find for the Cardinals, something we're excited about. Something else we want to talk about, something that's coming up here, the Arizona Fall League, right? So if you don't know what that is, which a lot of people probably won't, it's a thing where teams get to send prospects to every year. You send a couple of guys, they get on a team with other prospects from other teams, and they play down in Arizona, and they just play roughly a month of games. And it's just a good chance for guys who need more innings, basically, or more plate appearances or something like that. And so usually the teams send specific types of players, guys they want to see in maybe a more competitive environment than they played last year. It's pretty non-committal because it's just a month there. So it's not like, hey, we don't know if you're ready for AA, so we're just going to put you there. But it kind of gives you that opportunity to see somebody in a different environment. So the Cardinals have already announced, I believe, they're sending Bernal there, you said earlier. But we were going to talk a little bit about maybe who else they're going to send to that league and who it could be really beneficial for here. So last year, I wrote an article at Redbird Rants about who was there. The standouts they sent like Takoa Roby. He did not have the best time there. But it's really hard to take those numbers as well since the sample size is so small. So Kareem, tell us a little bit about what you're excited for with the Arizona Fall League this year and who you think the Cardinals may send.
Yeah, so briefly talking about Bernal, his agency actually posted that he would be heading over to the Arizona Fall League. I'm not sure if that was a leak or not,
Ooh,
but Bernal posted that on Instagram as well, and I have no reason to believe that's not going to happen. It seems
yeah.
like he is going to the AFL, which I mean, it's really impressive to see what Bernal has done throughout his professional career. I mean, this is a guy that's always been challenged in terms of levels, and despite that, he's always performed. Hitting above average for the league. I mean, this year at Peoria, hit 119 WRC plus in 96 games and is already at AA despite being 20 years old. Defensively, I think he's taken to major strides this year, actually throwing 35% of runners out. And that actually ranks 7th best among catchers with 50 plus games caught this year. So, I mean, his ability to, gun down runners. I know there's a lot of controversy in terms of that right now, in terms of the Cardinals major league team with a particular someone. But I mean, Bernal has looked great in terms of that this year, gunning down runners. 35% rate is very good. And the offense continues to show. And yeah, really excited to see, what he's able to do at the Arizona Fall League. Now, you talked about Takora Roby and Cooper Jerpy as a couple guys that the Cardinals sent last year. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them again this year for the Arizona Fall League, just because, I mean, they haven't pitched enough innings, they've been riddled with injuries. I mean, Takora Roby dealing with a shoulder. He's currently pitching a rehab assignment at Palm Beach, which is good to see, him back in action, and the stuff still looks, as great as always. I mean, Takora Roby's a guy that, if he could just stay healthy, I think the stuff is absolutely amazing. Like, I think this is someone that's still got the potential to be one of the better pitchers in this Cardinals organization. Wow. I mean, the stuff is that good. He just needs to stay healthy. I think when he did pitch this year, there were some inconsistencies in terms of his command. I think he was leaving pitches over the heart of the plate a little too much. Yeah. But besides that, like, very, very good stuff. And I hope we see Roby get a little bit action at the Arizona Fall League, just to, put some innings, because I mean, he hasn't pitched a ton, even, dating back to last year, had a lot of injuries. So, and I mean, the same can be said about Cooper Jerpy. I know Jerpy pitched more than Takora Roby this year, but I mean, he's been on the injured list for quite some time. I mean, he hasn't pitched since early July. The thing about Roby, though, I think when he's been out there this year, he has been fantastic. I think he's been one of the best pitching prospects in the system, no doubt. I think he's a bona fide top 3 pitching prospect in the system. And I've actually had people tell me that he's the number 1 guy in the system over a guy like Quinn Mathews and Ting Hench, which is crazy. I mean, I just pray he's able to stay healthy, because I mean, this is someone that, between his high strikeout ability, ability to manage contact as well, this is someone that generates a ton of ground balls, gets a ton of pop outs. I mean, when hitters make contact, they do no sort of damage against Cooper Jerpy. So it's not just the strikeouts. I mean, this is a guy that really is a fantastic pitcher, man. Like, I don't think Cardinals fans realize how good of a pitcher Cooper Jerpy could potentially be. I think this is a guy with front lines potential. Like, and you don't see that always with prospects. I mean, even a guy like Quinn Mathews and Ting Hench, I think Cooper Jerpy might have more potential than those guys, which I'm not sure Cardinals fans even realize that. But Jerpy's velocity has been up this year when he pitched. Last year, he was sitting in the high 80s. He's now up to 91 on that fastball. And the pitch has played well. He obviously has that sweeper, changeup, also throws a cutter. I mean, the arsenal is really, really there for him. He does do a good job at throwing his pitches inside the strike zone. I mean, the walk rates might seem not that great. I think that has more so to do with the fact that he's not generating a ton of chase. Maybe Jerpy can add a pitch to help negate that or something. But at the moment, like, that's really the reason why he's not limiting walks at a high level. I mean, hitters just aren't chasing him a ton. And I mean, when you have, pitches that, like Jerpy, they're like his fastball, changeup, slider, they all have different movement profiles. They go separate directions. So you could see why hitters, might not chase against it. They, like his offerings are so good that even if hitters know what's coming, he's still going to find success basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really excited about Jerpy's long-term future. I just hope he can stay healthy, much like Takora Roby. And yeah, I think those are two guys that should definitely be sent back to the Arizona Fall League as long as they're healthy. I just want to see them get some innings out there.
Yeah, well, who's ready for a future rotation that includes Jerpy, Roby, obviously Quinn Mathews and Teen Kent's at the front end, and then Michael McDreamy pitching in the 5 spot. You heard it here first. That's what's going to happen in 2028. But seriously, thanks everyone for tuning in to the first episode of Birds on the Farm. This has been so fun. This is the part of the episode where normally we try to take some Q&As, maybe analyze some prospect profiles of guys that you're interested in, that you want to hear about. Obviously, this is the first episode, so we haven't had any time for that yet. But next time around, we hope to take a couple of those. Seriously, like if you think your player is niche, I guarantee you Kareem knows who it is or has really good data on that player to break it down. He's the best in the business at it. So this is where you want to go to get all of your prospect news. So again, thanks for tuning in. This has been a blast. We're just as excited as everybody else to see kind of what this becomes, but we're going to be here every week to talk to you guys about Cardinals prospects. So thanks so much for tuning in. Just can't say enough how excited we are. And we'll see you guys next time.